projects. My name is Charlie Seltzer. I'm an account manager at CivicSolar, and I'll be today's host. Today's presenter is Graham Smith, CEO of Open Energy Group. Open Energy Group provides debt financing for commercial solar projects, and Graham has been in renewable energy financing for 15 years and also in building capital markets brokerage platforms. Today's webinar is just 30 minutes long, but Graham assured me we'll have the last couple minutes for a Q&A, and we'll also send out a recording of today's webinar along with the slides. And a little more information about the two companies. CivicSolar is a leading online solar distribution company. Our mission is to accelerate the adoption of solar power by being the most responsive and most efficient distributor in the industry. Besides equipment procurement, we also provide design and engineering support and services, and we've also partnered with leading financing companies such as Open Energy Group. Open Energy Group is a tech-enabled solar lending platform. They're focused on the C&I space, and they have two products, a construction loan and a term loan that ranges from $5 to $10 million. They have an innovative platform that is making C&I financing more flexible, efficient, and affordable. And before diving into the webinar, I just want to provide a little more color on the commercial sector. Now, this is a chart that most of you have probably seen, but it demonstrates that commercial solar growth has been relatively flat, while utility solar and residential solar's growth has been tremendous over the last couple of years. In 2015, residential solar installed more than 2 gigawatts, whereas commercial solar was about 1 gigawatt. And over the last 3 years, residential solar has grown by, on average, more than 30% annually, while commercial solar's growth has been flat. However, it's not for a lack of opportunity. PPA provider Wiser Capital estimates that the Northeast alone is a $67 billion market. Now, there are a couple of factors why commercial solar's growth has been flat, and first and foremost, and the reason why we're all here today, is access to financing. Businesses in the U.S., unlike individuals, do not have FICO scores, so it's difficult to do due diligence on projects, and the financing costs for projects less than 500 kW can be prohibitively high. Another challenge is most businesses in the U.S., or many businesses, do not own their properties, they lease them, and landlords are going to be reluctant to sign a long-term PPA or make a long-term capital investment if their tenants just have a short-term lease. And also businesses in the U.S., several of them, many of them are small businesses, and they don't have enough tax liability, or they don't have the structure to be able to take advantage of the accelerated depreciation. And without the tax benefits and incentives, it's very difficult for some commercial projects to pencil. And although commercial solar projects are very safe and low-risk investments, businesses do have to weigh them with other investment opportunities they have and other objectives. Therefore, the sales cycle for commercial solar projects is quite lengthy, and it's difficult to maintain a healthy pipeline of projects. Now, there isn't a silver bullet for commercial financing or commercial solar in general, but it's very important, and it's necessary that EPCs and solar contractors have access to competitive financing. And Open Energy Group and their platform is really addressing this challenge and helping unlock the C&I space. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Graham, who will go more on how to get debt financing for commercial solar and how their platform is unlocking commercial solar's potential.
Firstly, hi everyone. Thank you, Charlie and Mary and the team at CivicSolar for having Open Energy on this webinar. Yeah, you're exactly right, and I don't want to disappoint everyone, but there isn't any magic, no silver bullet. However, you know, we identified in the past, just before we go to the slide, that the commercial solar market was underserved for financing. It was expensive, slow. There was poor financing execution. It was expensive, opaque, and lender-centric. And the solution was to make commercial solar finance accessible by making it fast, reliable, putting it online, capping costs, providing market lending rates, make it borrower-centric and transparent. And this slide here speaks to the cost element. We're saying, conventionally the cost of getting a loan was prohibitively high. So we've addressed that by reducing incrementally, first of all, identifying the basis of the fees and the legal fees, the engineering report, and not changing those fundamentally, because we still need to do due diligence, but we use efficiencies of an online platform and standardized processes to limit the amount of attorneys involved. We've conformed the engineer's report to the essentials on an IE report that makes it cheaper and also very much cookie cutter. And then in terms of the other fees, that we felt they were market. But all the time we're squeezing those down. The legal fees will continue to compress as we make, if you like, when we started, the anecdote I always remember saying to one of the early borrowers and investors was that it's a little like a credit card. You don't argue, with Capital One or your credit card provider when you sign the agreement. You just sign it, and that's the ambition here. So moving on, I think how can we spend a lot of our time, we do as much as we can to talk to our borrowers and educate the market as much as we've seen, and we believe that financing can be made accessible. And just wanted to run through some of the things on this slide when we talk to our borrower developers. So that typically our clients and borrowers are those that are looking to own the projects. And so we say, well, who's buying the power? That's key for us as a lender, saying that's the credit, that's the risk we're facing. Who's buying the power, and making sure to find a suitable partner. I guess then your question is, what's a suitable partner? That's someone who has a good credit, a company that's been around a while and has a good balance sheet. And we typically look for 3 years financials that we analyze, and we actually assign a credit rating to. To Charlie's point about the no FICO, we're using a tool from Moody's to assign a credit rating. So in terms of, then you're looking at, how to get the best financing. Is it a loan? Is it a lease? And there are multiple options, and being aware of those is key. We at Open Energy provide loans. We feel they're, ultimately the most flexible and easy to understand and most easy to deploy financing product. And then from that, you can decide, well, is it a lease provider I need, or simply, a loan provider such as Open Energy, or a bank for that matter. Spoke about the tax equity solution, or tax equity appetite. We often find that our developers have initially tax appetite, but then they're looking for a third-party tax equity investor. That is key. If you can bring that to the deal, then that's ideal. For us, we're looking to provide, in the short term, a combined debt and tax equity solution. We very much see that as a part of solving the pain point of financing in the market. So we will keep people posted on that. And then in terms of the fundamentals, it's hard work, but knowing that there are contracts, agreements, reviews that need to be put in place, and that we will review and other finance providers will review. No reasonable financing will be accessible without properly vetted contracts and ultimately signed contracts. So knowing what you need, and then having, even if they're not completed, is knowing their status, so that ultimately you can manage as a borrower your timeline and the completion of a project. So in terms of what we get onto now is demonstrate some of the guts, if you like, what a borrower experiences. We took it online because the vision and the philosophy is using technology to automate a lot of the expensive manual tasks that often have gone on in C&I commercial financing. And what you can do then is both automate, as I mentioned, but you can standardize documentation, standardize processes, and make sure that it's something that's easily understandable. We talked about borrower-centric. This should be a process that works and is attuned to the borrower. So then we have a fast credit review. Essentially, it's telling the borrower, hey, look, this off-taker does or doesn't work, and with that, the whole loan. So if we approve the off-taker, we can quickly move into the subsequent terms. The agree terms, and then proceed through due diligence, underwriting, and funding. And all that is done online in a very intuitive way, handheld by our deal team. So ultimately, what this does is it drives down the transaction costs. It means that there aren't as many hands having to work through the process, and it's ultimately done in a shorter time, so therefore costs less. So we talk about transparency, we talk about efficiency where there's been a lot of inefficiency, and together what that means is that when you drop the costs and you shorten the time of funding, you can encourage more investment to the market because more deals will close, which leads in aggregate to more money coming in and giving more confidence to investors that this market is going to continue growing and is worthwhile investing into. So now I'm going to hand over to Stephanie to walk through the platform.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. I'm an analyst here at Open Energy. Just going to give you a brief demo of our platform so you can see what it looks like when you're applying for debt. So here I've logged in so you can see an example project that we might see from one of our developer clients. So this is a pretty typical size project for Open Energy, 1.5 megawatts. Our lending range is $500,000 to $10 million, so this is right within our wheelhouse. So this is what you might see when you first logged into your Open Energy account. This is an application that has been started. You can see the status is active. So I'm just going to click in and view the details. So this is the cover page. You're just going to tell us details about the project, tell us what type of loan you're seeking. Here they're looking for term, tell us your information, provide information about your plans for EPC, your tax equity plans, whether you have not determined them, whether you have internal tax appetite, you have an external partner, or you're seeking tax equity. And then you can add any additional notes you'd like to preface the project with. So then you'll proceed on to the first page of the application. So here there's operational details. You'll just input the basic numbers of the project. Here you can see the portal recognizes what are accurate and inaccurate numbers. So you can see if you enter an extra 0, you would be alerted that that capacity factor looks off. And you'll tell us what type of equipment you plan to use. And you'll proceed to the financials page. So here on this page, we're going to ask about your O&M provider and contract, your PPA, off-taker credit. That's what Graham just spoke to about the importance of understanding the credit of your off-taker, your PPA rate, escalation, and term. Any incentives, whether those are SRECs or a state rebate, you would enter here in section 7. And then you will tell us about your expenses. So you can add and remove expenses as necessary and state whether they're contracted or projected. And then I will proceed to the third and final page of the application, which is capitalization. So here you'll tell us what amount of debt you're seeking. So the whole capital stack. And then you'll tell us how you plan to use the capital, so EPC costs versus interconnection and development. Then you'll go to your summary page, ensure that everything's complete, add any additional notes, and that's it. You're done with the application. It, at this point, has arrived to Open Energy, and we start evaluating. Another important component of the portal is our financial projections page. So here you're able to see an estimation of the project revenues and expenses based on the numbers you've provided. And if anything needs to be altered, anything doesn't have a standard escalator, you can change that right in here. And so this is just an easy way for developers to see the model that we'll be looking at and see how it compares with your own. And then the third part of the portal that's really user-friendly for developers is our due diligence section. So here Once a project has proceeded to the point of a formal term sheet being signed, then we start due diligencing the project, and we provide various checklists so that you're really clear on everything we need, all the information we need, and documents in order to fund the loan. So here you see different categories, everything from construction agreement to financials, PPA, and then you can see whether they've been completed or they're still outstanding. So that's an easy way to check on the progress of yourself, perhaps of your team, as you move through our due diligence project. So that's a brief overview of the portal. I will now hand it back to Graham and Charlie for all your questions.
Yeah, I think thank you very much, Stephanie. And if we can go back to, I just directly go back to the credit, the other one too in the application. We want everyone to know that in here, what we look for is in borrowers is an understanding. We will look for the financials of the off-taker. So they might not be rated. This is just an example. So when you're working with the party buying the power for your particular project, what we want to see is the financials, and then we'll give them a rating. So obviously we understand that in the market there's hundreds of there's lots of entities that aren't rated. So we just want to let you know, but what's key is the sharing of the information, so we can get a quick rating of that entity ourselves. Looking forward to the questions.
All right, we'll hand it over to Charlie to facilitate the questions.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of questions have came in. One is, what is the smallest KW project that you guys will do?
Around 400, 500 kW. What we typically, one of the workarounds, we appreciate that clearly there's a big market for smaller projects, is that we tell our borrowers if they can bring or aggregate several of the slightly smaller projects, that can work for us as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And what are the typical terms for a loan, like the number of years, and also where does the interest rate fall?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically we land on a 15-year basis and fully amortizing, so that there's no residual payments at the end, and the rates are typically in and around 6%, maybe 7%, or maybe even tighter. It really depends on the quality of the off-taker.
Right. Does Open Energy have any restrictions on certain states or industries that they will fund?
No, there's no restriction on states. Obviously, as everyone listening will know, there's some very active states, but we have no restrictions. And generally we scale is obviously the point, and then in terms of sectors, there's no particular sector that I'd identify as somewhere we don't want to lend into.
Right. And then how about, are there any restrictions on the equipment or the EPC?
Yeah, that's a great question. The equipment we do want to be tier 1. So that list, when I say tier 1, we reference the Bloomberg New Energy Finance list typically. Yeah.
Does Open Energy Group require third-party monitoring for the system, or do they require extended warranties on the inverters?
We look for market standard. I think inverters are typically 10 years and panels are 20 to 25 years. The question around monitoring, we look for established O&M companies to be involved on the O&M side. We have our own monitoring that aggregates system data, but we're looking for the operations, the actual physical O&M to be carried out by a reputable O&M company.
Right. Is Open Energy Group able to recommend or refer any O&M providers?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And then on the platform, how long will it generally take to complete an application and to get like a quote, and then also to fund the project when it's ready to be financed?
Yeah, great question. I think Stephanie sees a lot of applications. I think what would you say, Stephanie? I think we look to days for terms. There's a questioning process. It's not. We're not a machine here, and the good news is, as Boris can speak to our team very quickly, and there's always a question or two that arises from an application. So terms in a matter of days, and then ultimately financing, we typically target 60 days. In an ideal world, it can go much faster, but still, this sector was plagued by, we mentioned earlier that having your documents ready, that I wouldn't be lying if I said that often we hear that a project has all the documentation, but candidly the documentation isn't in place. So we need to see that, and that takes time. And so that eats into 60 days when the actual material due diligence, examining the documentation, doesn't take that long, and the contract doesn't take that long. But the reality is that we're dealing with often imperfect information, and it's not ready, but we're helping set that up. So initially 60 days, but it's going to get shorter and shorter.
Right. And then the sales process for a commercial project can be quite lengthy and challenging. When would you recommend is an opportune time for an EPC or a developer to bring open energy to the table?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the PPA is the key in this process. And because from that is the base, ultimately, if you have a PPA, they're likely to provide. So let's say it's a PPA with an entity who might be also offering to lease on the roof for the solar system, and they're aligned. We can provide guidance along the way where the rest of the PPA being signed, and then we're happy to be brought into the process. But the more along on the process of a finalised EPC, interconnection, lease, and permits, the better.
Right. And a different type of question, what would you say are really the competitive advantages of Open Energy's product compared to other commercial financing products on the market that EPCs can get?
Yeah, great question. If we go back to the pain in the market, it's been slow, opaque, lender-centric, expensive. And what we've done is address as many of the pain points as possible. So the differentiation is one of speed, is particularly one of execution ability, so that we have a track record that our existing borrowers are very satisfied. We provide and all that, but by not charging, we cap the costs and we provide market lending rates, so that the overall package is reliability of funding. We talked about scalable, accessible funding, and I think that's what we clearly represent. And ultimately, it's the ability to combine and continue that innovating in providing financing that isn't that allows a developer to focus on what they need to do, which is building projects. So I think we mentioned tax equity before. That's the next phase for this business, and wrapping that into the platform and really delivering what borrowers need.
Right. And then over the past couple of years, has your product or your platform evolved in some of the criteria that you're evaluating? And also, how has the overall kind of the lending landscape changed in the C&I space? Are you seeing more interest from traditional banks, or are you seeing more platforms like yours emerging?
Yeah, we've the trends in our own approach has been to refine. We constantly iterate. So we improve our underwriting. We had a very strong basis to begin with, but we're learning all the time. We openly we borrow from we look to existing lending practices, to existing lenders, to institutional lenders, to build correct and reasonable underwriting criteria that will provide additional investors confidence to put their money into this market. For instance, buying on loans. And what we've seen is clearly there are many more borrowers coming into this market because the market's increasing as everyone realizes that solar is a tremendous cost-cutting measure for businesses when they're facing their simple electricity bills. And responding to that market demand, there are more lenders coming into the market, which we're very happy to see. You know, a rising tide lifts all boats. We want a competitive market for debt. We want a deep market for debt because everyone wins. We're very happy to see competition. It makes us raise our game. That's what we've always believed. So that's a little bit of everything that you said. Still underserved. It's hugely, the penetration of solar in the market is still very small compared to mature solar markets in other companies, particularly Europe. So we need more of the same. You know, this is about creating and delivering the means to put capital into the market.
Right, and what would you say is kind of like the biggest, like, I guess, challenge or opportunity to bring more solar projects online?
You know, I'm a little bit biased here. We think it's all about the availability of finance, and particularly when you look at other markets in solar, and I've had the benefit of seeing the UK market for solar, which is it's simpler. There is. Sure, everyone on the call those that do know the UK market and those that don't, you know, the point is that there's no tax equity in that market, or in France or Germany for that matter. And it's realizing that we have to collaboration through and using technology to allow tax equity to follow the pattern of debt and becoming more. It's the same, you know, it's the same pain point, and we believe that the answer is the same by capping costs, by making it transparent, by making it standardized. All these are possible. We've shown it's possible for debt, and we'll continue to do so, and we will then work on that pain point for tax equity.
Right. And kind of one more question. What can EPCs and solar contractors do to, I guess, bring more projects to the market, or get more financeable projects in front of you guys and other lenders?
Well, I think we provided, we do have a 6 or 7 step financing process. So it's adhering to those basics. And going back up to a little bit to the start of the presentation about talking about having the documentation available, being able to work, you know, certainly in our belief, it's working with a platform like ours to make them readily available. What we can't do is, I don't want to teach the listeners how to sell the deal. That's not our job. But what we can do is you know, we want to be and are currently a committed partner. So we're looking for replicability. So once we get involved, then we can communicate very clearly what we need, and being responsive, because that's the way we work.
Right. Well, I guess we're out of time. Any last comments, Grant?
No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this webinar. We're delighted, and we look forward to any questions, and anyone who wishes to learn more, please get in touch. We're a phone call away, and try us out.
Yeah, no, we've gotten great feedback so far from Open Energy Group, and thank you everyone who attended today. And we will be sending out a copy of today's slides along with the recording of today's webinar. And of course, Feel free to reach out to your CivicSolar account manager or to someone at Open Energy Group if you're interested in learning more about their product and platform. And with that, thank you everyone, and best of luck finishing out the year strong.
Thank you.